Britain in the 1950s was still catching its breath, bomb sites lingered on street corners, ration books had only just been put away, and money was tight in almost every household, yet something remarkable was happening. Ordinary families were buying their first car. Not for speed, not for glamour, just for freedom. Narrow lanes, humpback bridges, and unmarked crossroads shaped what fast even meant back then. A car that could reach 40 without shuddering was cause for celebration. Today on Britain Rewind, we're counting down 10 British cars that took modest to extraordinary new levels, and our number one barely deserved to be called a car at all, let alone a fast one. Number 10. Austin A30. Launched at the 1951 Earl's Court Motor Show as the new Austin 7, the A30 was Longbridge's answer to a simple question: how do you put a family into a car that costs almost nothing to run? The answer was an 803cc overhead valve engine producing just 28 horsepower, driving through a 4-speed gearbox that needed constant use to keep any momentum at all. The Motor magazine clocked 0 to 60 miles per hour in a leisurely 42.3 seconds, with a top speed hovering around 62 to 67 miles per hour on a good day, ideally downhill. Would you have had the patience? Owners didn't seem to mind. The A30 was light, cheerful and nimble around town, even if motorway slip roads would come to test it mercilessly a few years later. Fuel economy in the low 40s helped soften the blow of that lethargic acceleration. Journalists praised its handling and roominess for something so tiny, but nobody pretended it was quick. And here's the twist: the engine beneath that unassuming bonnet, the A-Series, would go on to power sports cars decades later. Small beginnings, indeed. But the next car made the A30 look positively urgent by comparison. Number 9. Ford Popular 103e. When Ford discontinued the Anglia and Perfect in 1953, they didn't simply retire the old body shell, they resurrected it. The Popular 103e wore styling with roots stretching back to 1932, powered by a 1172cc side valve engine producing a claimed 30 horsepower. Britain's cheapest new car at just £390, it offered synchromesh on only second and top gear, no heater, no water pump, and rod-operated drum brakes that demanded real effort from the driver's leg. Top speed came in at a modest 60.3 miles per hour according to the motor's 1954 road test, with 0 to 50 miles per hour taking a lingering 24.1 seconds. Could you live with that kind of patience today? For thousands of first-time buyers, it didn't matter. The Popular was reliable, simple to fix at the roadside, and utterly indestructible, which is precisely why so many later became Britain's favorite hot rod donor car. But back in period, this was budget motoring stripped to its barest bones, thirsty on effort if not on fuel, and never in any hurry whatsoever. What came next was gentler on the eye but no more urgent underneath. Number 8. Morris Minor Series MM. Alec Isagonis had originally envisioned something far more ambitious for his new small car, an all-independent suspension and a flat-four engine to match. Management had other ideas. Budget constraints meant the Minor launched in 1948 with a recycled CC side valve unit borrowed straight from the pre-war Morris 8, and that compromise defined the car's performance right through into the 1950s. With 27.5 horsepower on tap, top speed settled around 62 miles per hour, while 0 to 60 miles per hour could take anywhere from 36 to over 50 seconds depending on which road tester you believed. Do you remember riding in one of these split-screen Minors? The handling, thanks to that rack and pinion steering and torsion bar front end, was genuinely sweet for the era. It was the engine holding everything back. Enthusiasts eventually fitted tuned Alta cylinder heads just to drag out a few extra miles per hour. For everyone else, the Minor remained a triumph of design wrapped around an engine that seemed to be actively working against it. The car at number 7, though, wasn't held back by an old engine. It was held back by the law itself. Number 7, Land Rover Series 1. Rover's little farm workhorse arrived in 1948 with an 80-inch wheelbase and a 1.6-litre petrol engine producing around 50 horsepower, and its top speed genuinely struggled to clear 60 miles per hour even in ideal conditions. That wasn't even the strangest part of its story. Because the Land Rover was originally classified as a commercial vehicle for tax purposes, British law actually restricted it to 30 miles per hour on public roads for a period, a limit only overturned after a legal appeal reached the law lords. Can you imagine joining a main road at 30, legally, in a vehicle everyone else was overtaking? Even once that restriction eased, the short 80-inch chassis gave the ride a choppy, agricultural feel that no amount of patience could fully soften. Owners loved it anyway. Farmers, vets, and soldiers across the Commonwealth relied on the Land Rover's unstoppable, go-anywhere character, forgiving its lack of pace entirely because nothing else could cross a muddy field with such ease. This was never about speed. It was about getting there at all. The next car, however, was a commercial vehicle of a very different kind, and just as leisurely. Number 6. Jowett Bradford. Built in Idle, near Bradford, this humble little van and estate car traced its roots back to a 1932 design, propelled by a flat-twin side-valve engine of just 1005 cc. Early post-war examples produced a mere 19 horsepower, later boosted to 25 brake horsepower by 1950, lifting the top speed to a still gentle 53 miles per hour. You'd think that couldn't get any slower. Yet plenty of small shopkeepers and tradesmen across Britain relied on the Bradford precisely because its low-revving torque suited hilly Yorkshire terrain better than raw power ever could. The 3-speed gearbox lacked synchromesh entirely, meaning every gear change demanded a practiced double D-clutch technique that newer drivers found baffling. Would patience have been enough for you behind that wheel, crawling up a pennine incline in second gear? Jowett clearly thought so, and 38,000 buyers agreed, right up until production ended in 1953 as the company itself collapsed. It remains one of the most overlooked utility vehicles of the entire decade. But utility vans weren't the only slow British machines wearing a diesel badge for the very first time. Number 5. Standard Vanguard Phase 2 Diesel. In February 1954, Standard made history as the first British car maker to offer a factory-fitted diesel engine, borrowing a 2.1-litre unit originally developed for the Ferguson tractor. This was engineering ambition meeting brutal reality. Where the petrol Vanguard could reach 80 miles per hour, the diesel version's extra weight and the tractor-derived engine's modest 40 horsepower dragged top speed down to just 65 or 66 miles per hour, and acceleration figures were rarely published for good reason. Starting the thing from cold required manually operating a decompressor and an overfueling device called, rather charmingly, the Kigas. Would you have bothered with all that ceremony just to reach the shops? Fleet buyers appreciated the diesel's astonishing thrift and durability, qualities that mattered enormously to taxi firms and commercial operators watching every penny. Ordinary private buyers, though, largely gave it a miss, unwilling to trade pace for pence. It remains a genuine landmark, Britain's first mass-produced diesel passenger car, even if nobody would ever call it lively. The next car swapped a tractor engine for something even smaller, and somehow made even less sense on paper. Number 4. The Standard 8. Unveiled in late 1953 at a rock-bottom £481, the Standard 8 undercut the Austin A30, the Ford Anglia and the Morris Minor alike, and it did so with a genuinely modern 803cc overhead valve engine producing just 26 horsepower. The Motor magazine recorded a top speed of 61 miles per hour, with 0 to 50 miles per hour taking a patient 26.5 seconds. One upcoming car on this list could barely manage that same trick, and we haven't even reached it yet. To hit that price, though, Standard cut corners nobody expected. There was no external boot lid whatsoever, luggage had to be posted through the back doors and folded down over the rear seat, which dealers cheerfully spun as a theft deterrent feature. Would you have accepted that compromise for the saving? Buyers largely did, drawn in by roomy interiors and styling sharper than its rivals. Reviewers praised its comfort while quietly noting the mechanical spec had been trimmed nowhere near as much as the price suggested it should be. Pace, sadly, remained firmly an afterthought. Number 3. Reliant Regal Mark I. Introduced in 1953 from a factory in Tamworth, the original Reliant Regal was a three-wheeled cycle car with an aluminium body mounted over a wooden frame, powered by a 747cc side valve engine descended from the old Austin 7 unit. Output came in at a wheezy 16 horsepower, granting a top speed of roughly 50 miles per hour in ideal, tailwind-assisted conditions. Could you have joined a British A-road in something this modest? Its three-wheel layout meant lower purchase tax and cheaper insurance, and crucially it could be driven on a motorcycle license, opening car ownership to buyers who'd never have qualified otherwise. That single legal quirk explains why the Regal sold in such numbers despite performance that barely troubled a determined cyclist on a downhill stretch. Owners nursed genuine affection for its frugality, some examples reportedly covering staggering mileages without major failure. Critics, meanwhile, worried openly about stability given that single front wheel. The next entry looked utterly conventional by comparison, for wheels and all, yet it hid a performance secret almost as underwhelming. Number 2. Ford Anglia 100e. Launched in 1953 alongside its perfect sibling, the 100e finally brought Ford's small car range into the modern age with unitary construction and a fresh, ponton-style body. Underneath, though, sat a familiar 1172cc side valve engine producing around 36 horsepower, giving a top speed hovering just above 70 miles per hour on paper, considerably less in the damp British reality most owners actually experienced. That gap between claimed and lived performance frustrated period road testers repeatedly. One upcoming entry made even this feel positively brisk. Acceleration remained leisurely throughout, with a 3-speed gearbox demanding careful, unhurried gear changes to avoid bogging down entirely on any incline. Would you have trusted it on the newly opening motorway network later in the decade? Many drivers genuinely didn't, sticking to the older A-roads it felt more suited to. Owners nonetheless praised its comfort and space compared with the aging 103e it eventually replaced, proof that Britain's buyers valued practicality over outright pace almost every single time. And now, at last, we reach the car that barely deserved to be called fast at all. Number 1. Bond Minicar. Built in Preston from 1949 by Lawrence Bond, this three-wheeled runabout was powered, if that's the right word, by a 122cc VS motorcycle engine driving the single front wheel. Top speed in its earliest form was a genuinely astonishing 30 miles per hour, with some period tests recording little more than that even after upgrades. Can you imagine joining traffic at walking plus pace, in a vehicle with no reverse gear whatsoever? Reversing meant physically turning the entire front assembly, engine included, on its steering mount, since the gearbox simply had none. And yet the Minicar thrived. Its featherweight construction and three-wheel status meant lower purchase tax, cheaper insurance, and eligibility for a motorcycle license, making it genuinely affordable when full-sized cars remained out of reach for many families. Marketed as the world's most economical car, it delivered extraordinary fuel economy, some endurance runs reportedly exceeding 100 miles per gallon. Later engines lifted top speed toward 50 miles per hour by the mid-1950s, but that original 30 miles per hour crawl earns it our number 1 spot, decisively, and without argument. 10 cars, and not a single one built for speed. Yet each earned its place in British hearts through thrift, resilience and honest, unpretentious character. These weren't machines chasing records, they were machines chasing affordability, reliability and a slice of post-war freedom for families who'd waited years for their turn behind the wheel. That patient, make-do spirit is arguably as British as the cars themselves. So tell us in the comments, which of these 10 would you have chosen to drive? Thank you for spending this time with us here at Britain Rewind. We will see you in the next amazing video.